Greetings! So this time we're looking at Gnome, and we're already on our desktop, and this is the Gnome login screen. So it doesn't look that different from Windows or any other, or Mac OS for that matter. You would interact with it the exact same way. So you just click on your name, and then you put in the password that you set up. Any of you that haven't installed Linux at this point in time, you can keep watching, of course, but I highly suggest going back and watching the previous video and getting this installed either in a VM or directly on hardware. And I highly recommend doing it on direct hardware. It just increases the experience. So the first time you get this little welcome screen, I really don't care. I'm just going to let it go through its deal and start using Ubuntu. And I do not want this screen. Okay. So that shouldn't come up. Now I'm going to hop into the settings real quick and make this a little bigger. And we're going to put this, I have small monitors, so they're actually set to this resolution. So I'm going to do that and keep the changes. And again, what you're seeing right now looks and feels very similar to your standard Windows modern operating system. There's not a whole lot of difference. It just looks a little different. I'm actually going to get rid of that little pin. So here we are at Gnome. And for those of you that installed Gnome, you're looking at the exact same screen I am. And you're probably saying to yourself, what have I done? What do we do now? It's like, well, with Gnome, by default, it has this activities page. And that pulls up your favorites bar. Now, if you head down here, you get to see all the installed applications. So we have the Music app, we have Minesweeper, for those of you that missed that from Windows XP, we have Photos app, we have Rhythmbox, which is a iTunes equivalent basically. And there's a lot of different things. You've got Cheese, which will use your webcam to take a screenshot of you. Evolution is the GNOME specific email client. It's got LibreOffice already installed, Firefox. Any of you Mahjong players, you guys can do that. So there's a number of different things that come pre-packaged and are installed on here. The two most important things is this right here, the terminal, and then you also have software. Now this is the software center that ships with Ubuntu, and it looks a little different here than it normally would. Normally it's going to be this, it's going to follow their orange color scheme, but the GNOME guys decided that they were going to switch the icon to make it fit with the GNOME color scheme, and it's perfectly fine. It's their choice. Now, in my experiences, the Ubuntu Software Center is glitchy. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, whatever. But this also leads us into how you install software on Linux. Now, Linux has software repositories. And all I'm doing right here is switching the color scheme because I like it to be the old green on black color scheme. It makes me very happy. But this is your terminal. And because everything is a terminal command, you need to get very accustomed to this screen. Let's see. Yes, it does do that. So what you guys just saw there is I have two screens on my setup, and yeah, it's not that important. But yeah. So we're just going to make this bigger. There are settings inside of Gnome to give yourself the maximize, minimize stuff. For right now, it's much more important that you understand how software works, how Linux does software installation, and aside from select third-party proprietary software manufacturers, doing it the Linux way is really important. So I mentioned previously about Debian package distribution and RPM package distribution. Those are specific types of package management systems that run off of repos or repositories. And what repositories are, in the modern vernacular, it is an app store. Now, repositories, these are repositories more like Git repositories, and that's effectively what you're doing is you're downloading and running a Git repository to compile on your system, and you're done. It's much more similar to the Git repository than it is an app store, but it does have some of that inclination as the modern vernacular would have, simply because you're dealing with a set place where, like in this default configuration, Ubuntu says, these repositories we are maintaining for this version of our product, of our operating system. And so everything that you have or can get from the Ubuntu software repository is maintained by Ubuntu. And so that just makes it work very nicely. Randomly and occasionally things go wrong, but those are much more of the exception. And one of the reasons why Linux uses repositories is because when you download a piece of software from the internet, we've all done it with CNET. When you download something from CNET, it might break your machine, it might install a virus, it might do anything, or it might do exactly what it advertised it was going to do. You never know. And that's one of the things with Linux that at the end of the day, in my opinion, is far superior to Windows and Mac. Because with these repositories, they are maintained and someone's watching over them to ensure that they work with this specific version. Now, with repositories, you can install third-party repositories. Bob down the street can maintain his own repository, and you can plug into that repository and say, hey, I'm going to download packages from you. And occasionally you do that. To install Caffeine on Ubuntu, you have to run and add to the list of software repositories a PPA, which is, I don't remember what it stands for, what it's short for, but effectively is a privately maintained repository. And you have to do that to install Caffeine, which for those of you that don't know, Caffeine is a phenomenal little application that runs right up here in your taskbar that gives you an icon. When you click on that icon, then it disables all screensaver functions, all sleep functions, all hibernation, the whole kit and caboodle. You just click that button, you get the little steam coming up from your freshly brewed cup of coffee, and your computer stays awake indefinitely until you turn that off. It's a very handy little thing that works out really well. So let's go ahead and start looking at the command line. Let's look at how we do things. So if you want to do system updates, which just like Windows and just like Mac, they do system updates. So here you would do sudo apt get, and I immediately defaulted into installing an update. What this does is you have super user do, which as we discussed before, runs this command, this one line command as root. And so it will have all the rights and privileges that root has. apt get is basically Ubuntu or really Debian repository application get me updates. And so what this will do is it will go out to all of the repositories after I stick in my password and check to see if there are any updates. And you should always do this at least once a week, if not once a day, because there's always new stuff out there. And that's kind of one of the beauties of open source is things are constantly getting better. They're standing on the backs of giants, building out better iterations of the products and the applications and software that was already built before. It just works out really well. And then, once you've pulled those, you're going to want to install those updates. So you do sudo apt-get upgrade. And then it goes through and it will install all of those applications. All of these updates that need to be done to get me up to the current standards of what's available for this particular version of Ubuntu. So it's going to go through and it's going to do that. And while it's doing that, we're going to go take a look at a couple of other things here and there. Now, with Ubuntu, Gnome, or actually with Gnome, it's not specific to Ubuntu, it has a very fun thing called shell extensions. I like shell extensions a lot. It's one of the reasons why I like Ubuntu, why I like Gnome over, say, Unity or anything like that. And so all you do is you open up Firefox, and this has to be done within Firefox. You cannot do this inside of Chrome. And then you go to shell extensions, and you simply run that in search, and you get extensions.gnome.org. From here, you can install extensions to your desktop environment. Now, of course, before you can install anything, you have to tell it to allow, and I tell it to remember, just because, it makes my life easier. And there are several different shell extensions that I personally like on my Gnome. This is one of them. This particular one allows me to control my dock, which is what we saw inside the activities page. And then there's another one that I really like, and it is drop down terminal. And what this does is it allows me to have a drop down terminal every time I click the tilde key, so the little key up the top. It gives me a terminal session. So I'm done installing shell extensions, and there are other shell extensions. There are things that give you all kinds of things, weather, system information. There's so many options out there for software that it's ridiculous. But I'm trying to keep this short, and so we're show you guys the important stuff. So like drop-down terminal, I now have a shell, and I can do that anytime. And this works out really well if I want to run top. Now I have a system. Now top is effectively Task Manager. It's not very pretty. It's very simple, would be one word for it. But it does the job and it works out well. So now to get out of that, you press Q. Q, in most applications that you run in the terminal, Q is going to get you out of it. And that leads me into the concept of text editors. So with text editors, there's, again, a lot. There's just a lot of text editors. And for whatever reason, there is a holy war going on between Linux users of whether you use Vim or Emacs. Now, there are two text editors that I like to use, and that is Nano and Vim. Nano is something I've been using forever, and it's very simple. So I'm going to actually create a new file. So I'm just going to type in nano and then new file. Now, I can leave it at that. I can run it, and Linux doesn't care. Linux does not have file associations. However, with third-party software, it does want a PDF to be a PDF. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of gobbledygook, obviously. You as the Linux user has to know which files work in what applications. Linux really doesn't care about what the file extension is. It is simply for our benefit as the user. And so I'm going to put .text file because I want it to be a text file. And so now you get a very simple text editor. Now this is great for editing configuration files and various things of that nature, but you can use it as just a standard text editor and write code in it. If I wanted to do int main, and I don't know, let's do, obviously this won't run, aside from the fact it's it's not even proper hello world. The reality is, because I told it it's a text file, as far as I'm concerned, when I look at this later, it's a text file. But I can do GCC on new file. And what I did there is I typed in GCC space, and I put in NE for new, and did tab completion. What that is, you press tab, and then it will complete the file. And I can tell GCC to run it. Oh, it's not currently installed. I'll have to do that later. But if that had been installed, it would have tried to compile that file. Now granted, GCC is going to do extension checking and various things because it is software and it knows what it needs. But as far as I'm concerned, I need the text file to know it's a text file. I need that there in the name so that I know what the extension is, what type of file it is. Not because Linux needs it. That's a very important distinction to have. But if we want to look at basic file navigation, to get through the Ubuntu system, you have things like change directory. Same as with most anything else. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of tab completion. So I've got do, and I'm in my home directory. So I know that there's a downloads folder and there's a documents folder. If I press tab once, it does nothing. If I press it twice, that's why. So this is a good example. Capital letters mean a world of difference because the file names are decoded with ASCII. So the reason why that didn't work is because I didn't have a capital D. Now I tap twice and it shows me both options, the documents and the downloads. So I'm going to then pick, I want to go to the documents, press tab again, and suddenly the rest of it's there. This works out really well for navigating through the file system. Now, you see me doing a lot of stuff like LL and LS. LS lists everything in the file directory. If you've used Windows command line, then you've seen the dir or directory command, and that lists all the files in that current working directory. Well, the same thing's true here with ls. It does the exact same thing, but it's less letters. Now, ll is an aliased command. So if I do ls -al, that is all and list, it will show all the current files and folders, as well as hidden files and folders in the current working directory, and then the L will list them out. So it looks something like this. If I just do LSA, you can see it's the same information. Well, the majority of the same information. There's not this extra stuff over here, but it's not listed. And likewise, I can do ls-l, and it will simply take the non-hidden folders and files and list them out with their information. Then you've got things like rm, or remove, and I can use that to remove the new file we created, because it's a bunch of hogwash. And for now, I'm going to go back to here, because I think that's a little bit easier for you guys to see, and I like seeing the green. And the upgrade, the sudo apt-get upgrade, just got done installing all of that software while we were still doing stuff. Didn't really seem to bother anything, did it? So here, let's install htop. So I'm going to sudo apt-get install htop. Now, I know htop exists because I've been doing this for a while. And it's going to go through and look at the repositories that it has in its list of repositories and say, hey, do you have htop? Now, sometimes it will ask you, are you sure that you want to install this? In which case, just click yes, or type Y and then press enter. Again, it's a terminal, so the idea of a mouse doesn't really mean anything. But now we have htop. And again, I will press Q and quit out of that. Now, we didn't have GCC before. So let's do GCC. We're going to install that compiler. And here, it asked us, so I will type in Y and press enter for yes. And now it's going to go through and install it. Because GCC is a little bit bigger than htop, and it has more dependencies, it has more stuff to install, so it's going to take a little bit of extra time. But once it gets done, then we're going to have GCC, and we can install C code. We'd have to do G++ to install the C++ compiler, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do, and this time, let's do vim to show you guys that. So I'm going to vim new file and call it .txt and press enter. Apparently we don't have vim, so I'm going to install vim, which again, these are all very simple to do, and they really don't cause any problems. You just install. And there is, we'll probably look at the next video with a little bit of scripting. We'll probably look at a list of things that I like to install when I first get onto a new machine. But at the same time, that's not really important. Not for right now, for the purposes of getting you guys comfortable in the terminal, in the command line, and dealing with various different things. So now I'm going to, and this is a cool thing about terminals, which you have in the command line in Windows. You press the up arrow and you get to see the previous commands that have been run. And so now we're in Vim, because I went back to Vim and new file. So it's put me into a Vim session. Now with Vim, it's a very powerful text editor for the command line. I've been watching a lot of YouTube myself about Vim and reading several books about the power of Vim and everything it's capable of. But just for a base read, getting in and using it, obviously Nano is easier, it's simpler, but it also doesn't have the functionality that Vim does. But with Vim, you have 3 modes. We're only going to look at 2 of them. You have normal mode, which is what we're in now, where you would use, if there was anything there, you could use H, J, K, and L to move your cursor throughout a file and look at it. But we need to be in insert mode so we can actually write text. So I'm going to press I And now you see that we're in insert mode at the bottom, and I can type. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Int main, and let's do return 0. So perfectly fine. C++ code this time. And then now there's a prefix that takes you out of insert mode. And that is escape. And then I'm going to type in colon WQ. So that is write and quit. So you write it to the file and quit. And then press enter. And now I'm out. Now, if I want to check that that actually worked, I can use the cat command, which stands for concatenate, which this is a command that you would use to combine two text files together, but I'm just going to use it to display the contents of the file, and this works perfectly fine. So we're doing that, and so now I'm going to hand that over to the GCC compiler. And the GCC compiler kicked back and said, hey, you can't do that. It's a text file, effectively. So I'm going to rename it by using the move command. And I'm just showing you guys this. Come back, rewatch this, integrate it. Do it while I'm doing it on your VM. It will make a lot of sense once you get used to it. But I'm going to call it new file.c. A proper file name. So now, if we ls, you see that there is a new file.c, and new file.txt no longer exists. That file doesn't exist because I moved it. And if we do a cat on new file.c, you see it has the same contents. So let's feed that over to the GCC compiler. And it compiled just fine. If it returns back nothing, then it compiled. And that's one of the things that you will learn quite a bit in the terminal on Linux, is that if it doesn't give you output, that means no errors. Now, granted, with ls and with cat and different things, it's giving you output, but that is output specifically because that is what the command does. So now, let's ls, and we have a new file, .out. So to run that file locally, I tell it dot, which is the present directory, which we can see if we ls right here. There is the dot. So we're going to tell it dot slash a out. And what that's going to do is it's going to run the command a.out. It's going to run that file. So we run it, and there wasn't anything in the file that actually did anything, but it ran. And that's the important part. So now let's look at something called the bash RC that we can see right there. With the bash RC, I'm going to nano into the bash RC. Now, you look at this, and it is so much stuff. There's just a lot of things in here. But what's important to know is that bash RCs will go with you. This is a personal file. This is a personal configuration file. And as you start your journey in Linux, and as you start dealing with it, you're going to start finding there are certain things that you want to customize that just work well for you. And so you're going to edit this file to get those customizations that you want. And then you're going to copy that. And I would highly suggest creating a Git repo, putting this up there and saving it to it. And as you make changes, saving those changes to your Git repository with this in it, simply because these configurations are very important. The more you get used to it, the more it will customize your particular terminal environment. And then when you get to a new machine that doesn't have those shortcuts or configurations and different things you just become used to and you have muscle memory on, you're going to lose your mind. I swear to you, it happens all the time. But here, you can see where they have different commands aliased to, they have different ls commands, and they're all different aliases. So you have ls with the DAC. DAC is a term that you guys will hear me use, and is just dash. It's a military jargon. Don't worry about it. Just understand that's what I'm talking about. But here we have ls dash al capital F. F is a argument for ls that does something specific, and I'll show you how to find out what that means here in a second. But just know for right now is doing a list and all on the ls command when you type in ll, and that is aliased to where instead of typing in all of this in the quotes, we just type in ll and we get the same effect. The terminal is running what that ll command is aliased to. Likewise with the LA is just doing an ls-a, and then L is doing a ls-cf. So what does any of that mean? Well, with terminal environments, they created something called man pages, or manual pages. And so what you do is you simply type in man and the command you want. And then you get all of this output where you get to see what these flags are, how to use them, and various different things. Now, honestly, doing a Google page sometimes is less infuriating, but these are made and they're there. It's part of the operating system. Why not go ahead and use it? So the dash capital F is one of the arguments that we saw earlier. And so it is doing a classify argument, which appends the indicator da-da-da. I don't know what that means. To be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea what it's talking about. But this is one of the things that I'm talking about when I say the manual pages are made for the engineers by the engineers. So sometimes a simple Google search will help you, but at the same time, if you don't understand something, look at the man pages. If you don't understand the man pages, then look at Google. A lot of frustration, a lot of confusion can be solved by simply saying, hey, what does the man page say about this? And I'm just pressing the up and down arrow to get up and down this page. So like with the A, it is just all. So it ignores entries starting with a dot. And a dot is just hidden. And then with the dash L, as we saw previously, down here, it is use long listing format. So again, it's just a little bit of something to help remind yourself what something was. And as you get used to reading that, it will make a lot more sense. Now, just to show you some of the different syntax that you may see when you do Google searches, is sometimes people like doing commands like this, where you list off each argument as its own dash. I don't suggest doing that, but at the same time, if you want to do it, you want to do it. It's your call. It does the same thing. And so there's one last thing that I want to show you. So as you get comfortable doing Linux, you get by the graphical user interface and different things, it may come in very handy to log into your Linux box without the terminal or without the GUI interface. And so how do you do that? There's actually a really easy way. This is very similar to rebooting a Windows system and going into safe mode, but this is a lot better. So you would do Control, Alt, and F1. And that takes you to the GUI. Now I think there it just logged me out. So let's go ahead and log back in. But if you do Control, Alt, F2, okay, it's fighting me. So let's log back out. Control, Alt, F2. Okay, there we go. So that one was Control Alt F3. I don't know why, but this is the TTY3. So this is the terminal 3. And from here, I just type in my username and I type in my password, and I have a terminal. Now this is what you're going to get to if you install the server version. You're going to get to this, and you're going to have to know what you're doing. Now that is kind of jumping back to, I believe, the first video on Linux. But at the same time, this is very important to keep in mind, is that from here, I can go through and I can do a lot of stuff. Because remember, everything that GUI is doing is simply a terminal command. So I can go to the root of the directory, or the root of the hard drive, and then here's everything that is in the file system. Here's the entire file system, the root of the folder. And so from here, you can go into the, I don't know why there's a V there. You can go into the user, and you can see what's there. Now this, we'll get into file navigation and actually using some very cool tools in another video. But one of the things that will help you in the meantime, if you start doing this kind of thing, is after you do CD, and let's say I want to go into bin, I'll do tab completion to get the slash, and then I'll double tap, and it will give me, what the hell is it doing? So let's go ahead and go back to root, and let's do home. It gives me Blake, and there, when I double tapped inside of the Blake directory, it gives me all the directories that I can go to inside of the Blake directory. And so this would be very useful if you start going through the folder structure and you can't, like, you don't know what's next, but at the same time, what's the point in pressing enter, doing ls, and then having to type in CD again and pick that you want to go to music, instead of just saying, well, I'm going to go to home, and I'm going to go Blake, because I remember that, but where do I want to go next? I want to go to the desktop. Yeah, that's what I need to remember. And so there's stuff like that. It becomes very useful. Tab completion is a wonderful tool, and I highly suggest you guys looking at it. And so I think we're going to stop it there. I've been rambling for quite a while, but before I do, let's turn off the VM. So if you're in the GUI, you can literally just go up to the right-hand side and press the down arrow and then hit the power button. It will give you the option to reboot or shut off. From here within the terminal, I'm going to do sudo power off, and that will shut it down after I give it my password. And so thank you guys for watching. Press the like button if you liked it. You know what to do if you didn't. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you later.